But in the beginning, didn't God create Adam to love him?
Welcome to the Perfect Movie Podcast, the podcast where we answer the question, is this a perfect movie? I'm Michael.
I'm Kalen.
And today we are continuing our Steven Spielberg summer series. And we are doing AI, a hot topic, a trending topic. If we just put AI in this title, will we get the hits?
We'll get millions of views.
Excellent. And this is the first AI-generated movie by Steven Spielberg. Just kidding. That's Ready Player One. So it's funny when we chose to do this movie because as at the end of our last episode, we kind of hashed it out, I think, live on the podcast. We chose AI, and I brought it up, but I hadn't really seen it since I was a kid, and I only had the vaguest memories of it. And as we went into this, I was thinking to myself, I don't know if I vibe with this era of Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Because we just covered Minority Report, and we were kind of like mid. I've recently watched War of the Worlds, which is like 2005, and I also am like mid.
Yeah.
So I was not coming to this movie with the highest expectations, and I was pleasantly surprised that this movie is actually incredible. And when we chose this movie, I also didn't realize some of the background details that are interesting about this movie. But yeah, I guess just to start, pleasantly surprised. This is like really good movie.
Yeah. I was like, I've never heard of this movie before. And you were like, let's check it out. And I was like, sure. And I was like, what the hell? How have I never seen this before? Which is, you said you saw it as a kid.
So I think what the exact sequence of events was, because I have some very vivid memories of this movie, but they stop at about like the 40-minute mark. I remember when David is playing hide and seek and he comes in on his mother in the bathroom.
Oh.
I remember things going wrong at the pool party and that shot of David at the bottom of the pool as everybody's just left.
Yeah.
And then what I think happened is I was probably like way too young to watch this movie. And then it cut to the Gigolo Joe segment and my family banished me from the room is what I'm pretty sure happened.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, this movie brought me to tears at the end. And it was very wonderful. And I don't know. I don't want to get too excited about it, but I'm like, this might be one of Spielberg's best. Which is shocking because Rotten Tomato score is like on the lower end. It's still like a passing grade, but I don't know. Maybe just people haven't really heard of this movie.
Yeah, I might go so far as to say, and I've certainly not watched all of Steven Spielberg's newer movies, but this might be the dividing line. This movie might be where like the greatness ends. Yeah. Like the truly spectacular movies. Lincoln I have seen and is a good movie, so maybe that's the exception. But yeah, it's really great. And I think before we get into the performance test, I think we should talk about the background, which I kind of found out afterwards. So this movie started off as a longtime Stanley Kubrick project. Yeah. And it's something he developed for like 20 years, and he tried all kinds of things. He, at some point... Well, wait, before I explain the technological things he was going to do, let me explain the story a little bit. It's a story of a young boy. And it's based on a short story where it's like in the far-flung future, there's many robots that are like humanoid and, you know, do various things. Later in the movie, we meet a sex robot played by Jude Law. Mm-hmm. And in this far-flung future, the scientist comes up with the idea in the first scene of the movie where we're going to create a robot that has the power to love. And another part of the background is its past are like global warming apocalypse and childbirth has been altered and you like need to acquire a license. So like we're going to create a childlike young robot that can love.
There was like rising sea level. So most of like the big urban cities have been like wiped out. And so it's like small contained like colonies and stuff.
And to fill that void of families that might not be able to have a kid or maybe they only get to have one kid, they will be able to fill that void with this new David robot, the one that can love.
Yeah.
And David is played by Haley Joel Osment, the kid we might know from Sixth Sense.
I see dead people.
And that is the concept. And Kubrick, for a long time, was just convinced a child actor could not do this part.
Sure.
Because it really requires either just a very good way to mimic other people telling you emotions, or like a deep understanding of a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
And he tried at one point to like contact some like tech companies and like build an actual robot boy that was going to be the star of the movie. But he was like,
wow.
It just was awful and looked creepy. Like, so that went away. And then eventually, Kubrick passed, I believe, around the age of 70, shortly after
he was murdered.
He was murdered?
Yeah, it's a urban legend.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
He knew too much after Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah. He passed away after Eyes Wide Shut, and then early in the development process, Kubrick and Spielberg had talked together, and at one point Kubrick even said, "Steven, you should direct this movie, and I'll produce it."
Yeah.
But it never really took shape, and then Kubrick's widow called Spielberg soon after his death and said, "I want you to take over this movie and have it live on, otherwise it's never going to see the light of the day." And he did it. So a lot of this script is Kubrick, and then Spielberg kind of has his rubber stamp on one portion, and they're not the portions that you would think. It's actually kind of inverted.
And you can like really tell with like the dialogue and just the way, even the way the movie kind of looks. It just has that Kubrick feel to it, where it's almost dreamlike, you know. And then the dialogue is very fantastical, but also, I don't know how to really explain it. But if you've seen a Stanley Kubrick film, watch AI, and you'll know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Should we move along and get into the performance test, where we talk about our favorite actors, scenes, characters, and moments?
It was the performance of a lifetime!
Yeah, I think obviously the star of this film, Haley Joel Osment, and he is incredible in this. This is probably his best performance. Everybody knows him as the Sixth Sense kid. He's in a lot of stuff actually recently. He kind of dropped off the radar in like the earlier 2000s after Sixth Sense. But he was great, and he, like you were saying, they were having a hard time finding a kid, but I think he was like, he's a great kid for like when he stares. You know what I mean? He's just got that look on him where it's like you can tell there's so many different emotions going on.
Do you know the fun fact about his stare in this movie?
No.
David does not blink this entire movie.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
So, and I guess Haley Joel Osment like did it on set. They weren't like digitally removing those blinks, which I think has happened in another movie with the robot.
Sure.
But he was like actually committed to the bit of not blinking. So not only is this
incredible.
boy giving this great performance, in the background he's just trained himself not to blink.
Yeah. No, it's incredible, and I think he just has that. This is like an odyssey for him, and so he's going through all these different situations, some which are horrible, some which are beautiful, and he's able to like translate that emotion so well, even though he's playing like, you know, a robot that's kind of finding his humanity a little bit. But I just thought his performance was great, and big shout out to him because, like I said, this movie brought me to tears at the end, and that was mostly due to him and his performance. So.
Fairy. Please. Please make me into a real live boy. Please. Blue Fairy. Please. Make me real. Blue Fairy. Please make me real. Please make me real.
Yeah, and he has to like switch to different modes because when we first meet David, it's like before He's like really fully programmed. The mother, they go to this home, and I guess their son is like in a vegetative state somewhere, and they decide that they're going to take in this prototype robot. And when he comes in at first, he's like not fully programmed, and he says, the husband says, "Look, I have this piece of paper. You say these code words, and that's when he will imprint in you, and he will, love you forever. And if you decide to go back on this, like, he's gonna end up shipped back to the company. He's not like easily reprogrammable."
Right.
So when he arrives at first, he's like even more blank and robot-like and
creepy,
yeah. Until like that moment where she says those code words, and then he kind of melts into a more like human-like form after that. There's still that like uncanny valley-ness with his performance, where like the way he asks questions and the way he just like looks and scans around things appears different than like later the son comes home.
Do they like kind of alter his voice a little bit too?
I don't know.
I thought I noticed like it sounded kind of robotic a little bit. I don't know if that was him like making that voice, or if that was something they kind of like dubbed over the audio.
And that's really when things go left, is when the son returns home. I've never been so stressed out by the eating of spinach.
Oh yeah, that looked awful.
So they start having like a sibling rivalry. The boy's like, what, which is understandable, is like, why has this weird robot replaced me since I've been gone?
But he's also naturally like an asshole. So.
Yeah. And things just slowly escalate. The spinach scene, and the boy's like, "I'm real. See, I eat food." Blah. And he's like showing the food, and David always sits there with an empty plate miming eating food until that moment where he just starts stuffing spinach down his face, and eventually his face starts melting. Which is a trick.
Super eerie.
A trick Spielberg brings back in Minority Report. It's like the same effect.
Right.
And then the really like the surgery scene where he's just like splayed open and being like, "It doesn't hurt, mommy," is like just
Yeah. It's kind of, I mean, that kind of stuff. And so that's when I thought, because I had never seen this before, and so I thought this was going to go like a horror route or something, where he's like going to start murdering people or something. And I was pleasantly surprised that it was like the exact opposite of that. But yeah, it definitely like subverts your expectations a little bit.
And then, after that, and a scene in the near the pool where things go wrong, and accidentally David almost drowns the son. David gets sent off. The mom is supposed to return him to the company, but she decides to just leave him in the woods somewhere and give him a fighting chance, because she knows he'll just be like scrap for parts or whatever when he is returned. And then he goes off on his odyssey. And it's funny because Kubrick, I guess, when he was just talking about this movie casually, I think it was always called AI, but he would just refer to it as Pinocchio. And Pinocchio is like the central theme when he's still at home. He's read the Pinocchio story, and that becomes like the driving force of the whole rest of the movie.
And literally his odyssey is like putting him in the same types of like scenarios as Pinocchio was in the book, where
we have our, what is it, the Island of Lost Toys.
Yep. And then it's like the what is it, the flesh
fair.
Yeah. And you have Brendan Gleeson, and he's like playing like the whatever the, in the Pinocchio movie, it's the puppet master or whatever. Yeah.
He's like the MC of this fair.
Right. And that scene was really like, it was kind of disturbing a little bit, even though what the things that they were doing were to robots. It was still like pretty disturbing, because these AI were just kind of like accepting their inevitable doom kind of thing. And it was kind of hard to watch.
And like parts. Every movie that is about like super advanced robots that are like humans.
Yeah.
What it really is about is what makes us human.
Right.
What is a soul? You know, it's all the robots are like that guy at the beginning of The Dark Knight going, "Hey, what makes you so different? What makes you better than me?"
"I'm not wearing hockey pads."
And they're like, "We're made of flesh and you're not." And they just,
But they draw the line at kids. And that's kind of like, that goes back into like, humanity aspect, where our instinctual nature is to protect children, even though this thing is not actually a child, it looks like one. And so we're naturally kind of drawn to it.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen AI, The Flesh Fair is where just a bunch of the robots get rounded up, and they just have like a carnival where they're launching robots at targets and blowing them up and just burning them at the stake, and it's like a weird...
It's a sci-fi hick derby.
Yeah, it's like a sci-fi hick derby / gladiatorial arena, but not like like fights, just like we're burning these people, like murder for entertainment.
Yeah, but the crowd, like what I found really interesting, and I like this like little touch, was like the crowd participates. So they like hand out like little bean bags or something to the crowd, and they throw them at. It's almost like the dunking thing at the fair or whatever, and they hit the target, and then the acid falls on the robot. Just little things like that. There's so much detail, and I just really love that little touch and it's so menial, but thought it was interesting.
Did you catch the Chris Rock?
Yeah, that was pretty great. I was like, what the hell? Okay.
Chris Rock cameo as the robot.
You get a couple cameos, don't you, in this movie? We also get Robin Williams for a minute. He just does voice work, but his part was great.
Did you kind of shoot me over the propeller thing? Yeah, I don't need to go through it. I was considering it, but I changed my mind.
He's basically... we're crossing our streams as far as fantastical stories, but he's basically like the Wizard of Oz. Like,
yeah, that's what I kind of thought as well. He was Google, essentially.
Starving minds, welcome to Dr. No, where fast food for thought is served up 24 hours a day in 40,000 locations nationwide. Ask Dr. No, there's nothing I don't.
Tell me where I can find the blue fairy.
Question me, you pay the fee. 2 for $5, you get 1 free.
I think we need to now mention like the other half of our story, which is Gigolo Joe, which I guess is actually the segment that is more stamped to Steven Spielberg's name.
Oh, really?
Which you would think it would be the opposite. You think it would be the story of a boy and a mother.
Yeah.
And familial love.
Right.
No,
it sounds like a Kubrick thing. The Jude Law part.
So in my notes, I wrote Haley Joel Osment is the best actor in this movie, and then like a few lines later, I say, okay, Jude Law is the best actor in this movie.
Yeah,
but they're neck and neck.
Yeah,
but Gigolo Joe, our first meeting with him, he's just such an eccentric. He's the most enthusiastic sex bot.
Oh yeah,
he's like,
he loves his work. Yeah. That's for sure.
He's like. There's this lady with him that's really nervous. She's like, oh, it's my first time. And he like notices that like, oh, it looks like maybe she's been through some spousal abuse recently. And he like deals with all of this with this like suaveness and also tact that like no human ever would have.
Yeah. That's why he tells her, he's like, once you go robot, you're not going back, baby.
Exactly what name do you give this woman?
She is just Blue Fairy.
Blue Fairy. In the world of Augur, blue is the color of melancholy. Yet, the services I provide will put a blush back on anyone's cheek. I will change the color of your fairy for you. She will scream out in the moonlight, oh yes, oh God, oh yes, oh God, oh God. She will make you a real boy, for I will make her a real woman, and all will be right with the world, because you held my hand and saved my brain. So that once again, my customers may ask for me by name, Gigolo Joe, what do you know?
But Jude Law also ends up on the run because his second customer for that night, he turns up and she's murdered and he's framed for the murder.
Yeah.
And then he ends up on the run, and then David and Gigolo Joe unite at the carnival.
Is he supposed to be like the Fox character from Pinocchio?
Maybe.
That's kind of what I thought. But I thought the Fox in Pinocchio was like he had more nefarious kind of thing going on with him.
Yeah, because Gigolo Joe he's
a wholesome, nice guy.
Yeah, he's pretty much bent on helping David.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about Frances O'Connor. She plays Monica.
The mom?
Yeah. Oof. Madame.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She played her part well. Mm-hmm. I kind of wish there was a little bit more a little bit more connection between her and David. I just didn't really get that as much, and so it kind of like that payoff at the end doesn't hit as hard, even though it still hits pretty hard. But I just kind of wish there was a little bit more endearing kind of factor to her character as far as when it comes to David. Yeah, and I almost feel like, well, we'll get into this more and let the hate flow through, but Frances O'Connor, she was great. A lot of the emotional scenes come from her and her character, and yeah.
Is it William Hurt, the creator of David?
Yes.
So he has a pretty great monologue at the beginning where he's giving a sales pitch for David, and then his final line is, "Didn't God create man to love him?"
Yeah.
A great line. But then when we come back to him, and eventually David ends up back in his presence at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And we cut back to him a couple times, and we realize that David has been made in the image of his own son, it seems like.
Yeah.
Who has passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just another furthering of the theme of like the loss of a child, and like how the humans are choosing to deal with this and fill that void.
Right. Oh, we forgot about Teddy. I love Teddy. He was like my favorite character in the movie. Even though he didn't really do much, he just kind of tagged along and said a couple things. For whatever reason, I really loved the scene where the artificial moon comes up. Or no, they see that after that scene, when they leave the flesh fair and they see the real moon, and then he's like, "Teddy, is that the real moon?" He was like, "I don't know why that scene, like, because the music is like kind of going, I don't know. There's just so many little things to this movie that are just so magical.
I see the moon.
Is it real?
I don't know, David.
Is it coming?
I can't tell yet.
Let's not walk this way.
And Gigolo Joe does his little like Fred Astaire dance
in
the moonlight.
Yeah. It's like little things like that. I'm just like, I don't know.
Gives you
this tingle.
There's a sad wistfulness to this story and movie that just, this movie kind of smacked my soul, and I just was like reeling from it for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And it's the performances, it's the choices in the story, and yeah, it is those little moments, because the robots are all afraid of the moon because the man that takes people to the flesh fair rides around in like this
like an artificial balloon moon or something.
Yeah, he's in like a helium balloon that is shaped and glows like the moon. And the like guys on the motorcycles.
yeah.
That hunt them down. I was like, is this Mandy?
That almost took me out of it.
It was like very Power Rangers-y.
Yeah, I was like, what is this, Tron? Yeah, that was like, that scene almost took me out of it. But the effects we'll talk more in It's an Art, but the effects for the robots in that scene where they're gathering the parts and stuff was amazing.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about it. But do you have anything else for cast? I think everybody was great in this.
I agree. We can move on to It's an Art, Bro, where we talk about the effects, the lighting, the music, all the more technical details.
What's this?
It's an art project.
Okay, I like it. Picasso. Yeah, that way.
So there was a shot in that scene where they were being hunted by the wolf gang or whatever. And they cut to this face shot of this woman, and she turns her head, and it's all like it's like the mechanical, and you can see through it, and it looks so freaking good. And I was like, what the fuck? Why does this look so good? It looked seamless. And obviously it was like a digital effect or whatever, but it just looked so freaking good. And then I was like, when was this movie made? What year did this come out?
I believe this is either like
2001.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that effect looks incredible. And there's so many other things. There's like a guy taking his jaw off, and that was all practical. And then there was just a bunch of little things, and they had like a animatronic android, and he had like a weird face, and it was just so good, man.
Yeah, there's the guy that has like half his face blown off as he replaces his eye and shoves it into his socket.
Yeah.
There's the mech that has like a screen face.
Yeah.
And is just like these weird mechanical arms wandering around.
It looked so good. And I think part of it was like they're in the moonlight and it was dark, and so you can kind of hide the digital part, but it just was so seamless.
No, it's really seamless. I believe, is it Phil Tippett that was on this? One of the goats of practical effects was on this, and they really meshed it really seamlessly. Some of those bots, like the lady with the whole like face, but the whole back of her head, except for the ponytail, is just missing.
Yeah.
She is, like an actor that's like wearing like blue screen headbands around the top of her head, and then like when they bring all those robots into a cage, they had like 40 puppeteers under the floor, and it's a lifted thing, and like half of those,
that's incredible.
Half of those bots are puppets, like the android one that you were talking about with the screen face. And yeah, that part is just terrifying. Like it is just like
yeah.
And it's, I mean, showing both the cruelty of humanity, and then eventually kind of redeems them as the crowd turns against Brendan Gleeson when he tries to kill David, like the way he'd killed all the rest of them.
Yeah, I loved all the effects in this movie. Some things looked a little wonky, like towards the end with the ferry. Mm-hmm. Even though it was such a beautiful scene, but I was kind of distracted by the really with her. But other than that, and even the aliens, or not the aliens, but they're like the more advanced AI at the end of the movie. There were some parts where they looked really great, and then some parts where it was like, ooh, that looks kind of bad. But it's forgivable because the scenes were just so beautiful.
When we first meet David, he's like standing in a backlit hallway, and the way they shoot him walking in, all you see is like the shadow of his figure. It's like exactly how the aliens step off of the spaceship in Close Encounters.
Yep.
It's just like a complete mimicking of that shot.
Yeah. Lens flare everywhere. That's what this movie should be called. Steven Spielberg, like we said before, he loves his lens flares. There's a lot of that in this. There's a lot of that. It kind of adds to this movie, though. I think it really helps with that fairy tale-esque, like dreamlike quality it has to it. Also, Stanley Kubrick uses that a lot in some of his films. But I just really loved that. And it looked good this time, and it wasn't distracting, which I appreciated.
And the art design's really cool.
Yes.
Like when we meet the Gigolo Joe and he starts walking down the boulevard of the red light district.
Yeah.
That's mostly a pretty big set that has been accentuated with some computer effects around the edges. And it's just all the little mini details. And then eventually we end up in this place called Rouge City, which is like a whole city that's a red light district.
Yeah.
And they drive in on this bridge that is just surrounded by a woman's mouth.
Yeah, it looked really cool. I was like, this is like Blade Runner, basically.
And then all the buildings have like weird, like I think there's one building they couldn't put in because it looked too much like an erect penis. But then like the like door, it's like a building that's built around like spread legs.
Yeah.
Or like a big booted heel with fishnets on it or something. All those little details are just so spectacular when we visit Rouge City, which is just a wild place to take a little boy David.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He was, like, excited to be there. He was like, yeah.
I love Gigolo Joe's pitch. He's like, there's lady ones your age. As he's trying to...
Yeah.
There's a bunch of, like, horny teens he finds in a car, and he's trying to hitch a ride, and Gigolo Joe is just a silver-tongued devil.
He's a player, man.
And I didn't realize until he does it, because... at some point, David hijacks a helicopter, and then apparently that helicopter can also go underwater because he flies it underwater.
Yeah.
And I really love the final shot of the underwater sequence. Yeah. My grand theory of this movie is that might be when that movie should have ended.
Because then you get the narrator kind of telling how like, and I was like, is this gonna end right here? Because this shit is so fucking sad.
Yeah.
And he was like, and David was down there for thousands of years, and I was like, damn, bro, they're gonna do my guy like that, but it's cool. I thought that would have wrapped it up nicely.
Yeah.
And David continued to pray to the blue fairy there before him, she who smiled softly forever, she who welcomed forever. Eventually the floodlights dimmed and died, but David could still see her palely by day, and he still addressed her in hope. He prayed until all the sea anemones had shriveled and died. He prayed as the ocean froze and the ice encased the caged amphibicopter and the blue fairy too, locking them together where he could still make her out. A blue ghost in ice, always there, always smiling, always awaiting him. Eventually he never moved at all, but his eyes always stayed open, staring ahead forever all through the darkness of each night and the next day.
Also, music by John Williams again. What more can we say about John Williams? He's probably the greatest of all time. He's definitely up there. It's like him and Hans Zimmer. You know, they're just great. The music in this, very beautiful, very soft, a lot softer than some of his other work, but it definitely stands out, and you can tell it's him as well. Yeah.
And this is the era which Minority Report looks like this to the nth degree, where all the light is really blown out, and more in David's home. As we get out into the world, it kind of goes up, but like David's home looks really like desaturated, and the lights are really blown out, and it has like that dream-like feel almost, because everything's just so like soft and fuzzy everywhere.
Well, I almost felt like that's very intentional as far as like giving you the mind's eye of a child, where everything feels fantastical. I was reading this article. I don't know how true this is, but basically there's like a chemical. They were saying there's a chemical that's released into children's brains that mimics like the effects of like LSD. So basically children are just high all the fucking time, and they see the world brighter, and they see the world with more color, and they just find more joy in things. And as you get older, that chemical is starts to be nullified, and then you see the world as an adult kind of thing. Yeah. But I just thought that was maybe like an intentional kind of thing for
Probably. And we brought up Teddy. Teddy is a great effect for the most part, where they are seamlessly shifting between some shots. He is a digital effect added into the shot, and some of the shots, like they have a mechanical Teddy that like the actors could actually hold and had some movement. And then they had, for when he's like walking on the ground, they had this rig where like there was a grown man attached to it, puppeteering it, taking tiny steps.
Oh, wow.
Right behind him, and then getting painted out after the fact.
Yeah.
And then they had like a hero build, which was like, this one can convey all the emotions that we can for all the close-up scenes. And they even had like little heads that they could swap off for like, he's just sad in the scene, so we're going to have sad face.
I really loved when he was just running around the flesh fair. It looked so funny, and he was just dipping around. Like,
yeah.
But it looked good. It looked great.
I think we're mind like, we've been screwed by the movie Ted.
Yeah, I'm waiting for him to cuss or say something or be an asshole.
I was expecting him to sound like, what's his name?
Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah.
Peter Griffin.
Yeah. Mark Wahlberg to come out of somewhere, like just sitting on the couch, be like, kill them robots.
I mean, you could just tell. It's like if this was, I mean, obviously this is like a passion project for Stanley Kubrick, and it was like gifted to Steven Spielberg. But could you imagine this movie in another director's hands? It'd be completely different, and you'd probably lose a lot of that magic that comes from it, and it'd be a lot more whimsical. But which is like, there's whimsy in this too, but it's definitely able to ride that line that most fairy tales have, where they can get really dark, and but they can also be very lighthearted as well. And
I think Kubrick might have been right. Steven Spielberg might have been the man for the job.
I agree,
because I think he could balance, like, while we associate Spielberg with lots of whimsy, and Spielberg face is people looking up at something and being like, whoa, like this is so amazing.
Yeah.
When you really go through his movies, Jaws, Jurassic Park, even Minority Report, like these are movies that are full of like some pretty grim and dark subject matter at times, and he like can twist the knife on you.
Yeah.
So I think he was like the right pick to really bring the balance that this movie needed, because it's dark, but also like soft.
For sure.
Yeah. It's here to make you feel, not just to make you feel sick.
Right. You're just able to, there's just so many emotions portrayed, and it's amazing. Let's move on.
Let's go to, hey, what are you trying to say? Where we talk about the themes and ideas.
Take it away whenever you're ready.
All right, let me just get that last measurement on your
Thank you. I need this for the wedding.
Okay, well,
I need it really quickly.
It could take about a week to do.
It could take a week? So, what are you trying to say? It's trying to say that I'm so big, my bum is so big, you need to order to various countries far away to get enough material to make a pair of pants so I can fit my incredibly obese buttocks into a pair of your specially made little suits.
No, I mean I'm the only one working here this week.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this is a theme of our life back to high school.
Yeah.
What is real and what is fake?
And now we can't tell.
Yeah. I saw Biden do the Chief Keef intro.
And it looked so real. And my grandma thought it was for real, and she started freaking out.
I mean, AI is a discussion of today.
Well, you know, it's funny because they have, like, you remember that, what is that movie, Her?
Yeah.
And they have, like, actual AI programs like that where you can build a relationship with an artificial intelligence and they respond to you emotionally. And they also learn to know you, and they learn to know what you like and how they can, like, kind of manipulate your brain a little bit. It's incredible, but it's so terrifying.
Yeah. Did you hear about the guy that quit Google because he was convinced that their AI chatbot had become sentient, and he like released a bunch of his like chats with it?
I think I do remember this. I think I read some of those. Yeah,
which come off like creepy, but also I think Google's explanation, and I would tend to believe them more, is it's like this chatbot has read all those sci-fi novels, you know, and seen all those sci-fi movies. Like, they know all these tropes,
right?
So they can like lean into them in a way that's very convincing.
Sure.
But I mean, we're not far away. I don't know when we're going to achieve the convergence or whatever.
Yeah.
When Skynet is powering up.
I think it'll definitely be in our lifetime.
But like, even if that doesn't happen, it's going to ruin our lives in other ways.
Well, they found, I think there's that thing that happened with Facebook chat box or something, or some kind of AI that's associated with Facebook, and there was two separate AIs, and they found each other and they started conversing in a different language to each other. Like, fuck that, bro. I'm good, man. Shut it down.
I mean, if we follow what this movie says, eventually they will win.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's evolution for you, you know? They're probably just the next step in human evolution. We're just going to become obsolete, and then they're going to take our place.
And that's what Brendan Gleeson is yelling as he's maiming and murdering all these bots. That's what he's like, they will take over. It's us or them.
Yeah.
And low-key, he's right. I don't agree with his methods.
Right.
But, I mean, he wasn't wrong. It doesn't make him right, but he wasn't wrong.
And, well, it's funny because on the on the banner for the Flesh Fair, underneath it said Celebration of Life or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a nice little touch because it's like he obviously believes he's doing the right thing. And they're celebrating being human by destroying all these bots and stuff. I thought that was... but yeah, I guess it's like, it goes back to what we were talking about in Jurassic Park, where it's like, how much is too much? And playing God, is that really in our best interest? Because we're not omniscient, you know? And it's kind of scary.
And a lot of this movie, so David's driven by the story of Pinocchio, and he wants to find the blue fairy to turn him into a real boy. And he finds the blue fairy, I guess, at like some underwater pier in New York.
Yeah.
And Gigolo Joe goes along with him. And Gigolo Joe is found by the authorities, and I think the line that crushed me the most was when Gigolo Joe dies, and he goes, classic Gigolo Joe says, well, when the blue fairy turns into a real boy, tell all the ladies about me.
Yeah.
And then he goes, I was.
Yeah.
And accepts his fate as like this giant magnet, sucks him to the helicopter above.
Yeah.
I saw it, Joe. I saw it. The place where she lives. She's right down there, Joe.
She is?
She's waiting for me. We have to go.
Uh-oh. When you become a real boy, remember me to the ladies when you grow up.
Goodbye, Joe.
Goodbye, David. I am
I was.
Beautiful. Beautiful stuff. Hey, you don't need a big monologue to get some emotions.
No.
That's 4 words.
Just a few things, man.
4 words. 7 letters.
Yeah,
Like,
literally.
Succinct.
It's like, Rosebud or something. It's just, you don't need much, man.
Yeah, and it's all part of this journey. Is like we go to. You can ask the question of this movie: is David driven by his programming? Is he driven by love? What is he actually fulfilling when he basically drives himself to his own doom?
Yeah,
in an effort to become a real boy.
Right.
But we have this whole time with Gigolo Joe, and that's the moment where we're not really questioning his like intentions or quote unquote humanity, because the way he's like embraced David and has helped him on this journey. But that's like, the period on it where you're like, yeah, Gigolo Joe, he was real.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, even with David too, it's like at the end you get that for him too. It's like, he was accepting his fate as well, but it's like, he was so driven to just have one day, where he could kind of live out his own version of heaven and stuff. And it was so beautiful, man. And that ending, it just was like, I haven't felt that way in a long time when I'm watching a movie, and it hit for sure.
It's not just the finale. So like, and I was not convinced about this final section of the movie until like the last couple minutes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sweaty exposition about
right
about David gets brought back by these future AIs. They find him. They're like, he's the last part of humanity, and we meet all these weird like silvery AI people, and then they sit him down. And they're like, "What do you desire?" He's like, "I want my mommy back."
Yeah.
And then they do this thing where they say, "Okay, well, you could have your mommy back, but it only will happen for one day." And she goes back to sleep.
I kind of hated the way they did it, because it's like they just explained everything, and you didn't need that. You didn't need that for a movie that was so subtle in its dialogue. It's like that was like, I don't know, that was an odd choice, and you didn't really need all that. But
and this is the part that a lot of people put at Spielberg's feet, and I guess this is all in the Kubrick script. It picks up 2,000 years later at the end.
Which was fine. But I also thought, like, I don't think you really needed the androids to even speak. They could have just been there. And it's like, if they are kind of like this like really advanced race of robots or whatever, it would seem like they could just do all this kind of stuff telepathically, and they just kind of feel what David was feeling and give that to him without having to like verbally say it.
It's a much worse movie, and I can't remember its name right now, but that Hulu movie, the Hulu alien movie with the deaf lady?
Yeah, it was like the same thing.
It was
literally the same thing, and I'm pretty sure they ripped it off. Yeah.
Where the aliens see she's so traumatized, so they're gonna like give
so they
her...
let her go, and
but anyways, mom comes back and they have their final day. And then, like, David, I guess, at the end of the day, just kind of accepts. And for the first time, he slept, because he mentions earlier in the movie, I don't sleep, but I can pretend to if I need to.
Yeah.
And then that day, he slept and he never woke up. But
he dreamt of electric sheep.
But what kills me is when Teddy hops up on the bed. And it's like, Teddy's alone now.
Yeah.
Not Teddy.
I know. It just wrapped up so nicely, man. It just felt like the ending of a good book or something. It was it was brilliant. And I think we should get into some gripes. I just have a couple, but let's do it.
Let's let the hate flow through you, where we air out our annoyances and our complaints.
Good. Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
My thing is, how many times are we going to tread these waters with this type of story? Do androids dream of electric sheep? And like just the whole idea of artificial intelligence wanting to become a real boy. Yeah. It's been done many, many times. And I know this is like not the most recent film to do it.
And the idea even predates the movie by like 20 years.
Yeah, for sure. I just think a lot of these types of films that involve like synthetics and stuff, I mean, they all are based upon the same type of thing, which is the Blade Runner story, basically. But I mean, I think it's a great medium. I think it's a great way to kind of build your story around this, but I always kind of think it's always ends up being kind of the same thing. And yeah,
agree. There's no like way to like come down hard on like. There's not a real way to like flip that story that I've seen. I think it is a recurring trope just because it is such a core like human question. And,
for sure.
And thing to grapple with, especially as things continue to get more technologically advanced.
Yeah.
Like being concerned or like having this concept, and I believe the short story is from like 59 or something, like being you're really ahead of the game when you're writing this story
way back then.
Way back then, or Kubrick writing it in the 80s, you know, but like today it just feels so relevant. Like this is aged.
Absolutely.
Like I feel like Minority Report kind of aged like milk. Like we've seen that story too a few times. And along with the effects just looking iffy, it's just kind of like that movie's, in my opinion, just has not aged well. And then I feel like this movie has only gotten better with age.
I mean, honestly, it kind of reminds me of Blade Runner 2049, where it's like him realizing he's not special, you know, and kind of going on that odyssey where it's like discovery and then disappointment, you know. So these two films kind of, they tread very similar waters, and both are brilliant.
We didn't mention the part where he ends up at like the David factory and he finds all the David dolls.
Yeah, and then he like basically commits suicide after. It was very, very dark.
Can you read? Can you sit down and we can read together? Let's be friends. You can't ever. I can't hear you. She's mine. And I'm the only one. I'm David! I'm David! I'm David! I'm David! I'm David! I'm special! I'm unique! I'm David! You can't have her! I'm David! I'm David!
Hideous future cars are like the thing for early 2000s movies. They always have some prototype car that looks like shit. I don't know why. It's a very minor gripe. But I'm like, this looks stupid.
Yeah.
This looks bad. iRobot is a famous one. Minority Report has one.
I mean, it's like you almost didn't. You just don't really need that either. You know, it's like, why so much emphasis on this car? Like it's I don't know. It's not necessary. They kept showing it.
Yeah.
Somebody was very proud of it.
I mean, I think it's like a Hyundai sponsorship or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Barbie scene where it gets all the loving shots of like the Ford Explorer.
yeah. And then you forget, oh, this is a movie.
This is a movie. And my other question was like, do we like the final ending? It would have been really, really dark if it ended as David's on the bottom of the ocean and is trapped by the falling Ferris wheel.
Yeah. I would have been fine with
while
that.
he stares at the blue fairy going, make me a real boy, make me a real boy.
I think
please.
me and you would have been fine with that. I don't think a lot of other people would.
No. But for me, I was like, and then it fades to black and I'm like, oh, damn. And I was like, that's how it's going to end.
Yeah,
and
seriously.
I was going to be like crushed, but I was going to be like, whoa.
Well, honestly, if you're thinking about fairy tales, like that kind of harkens back to just the dark nature of fairy tales either. A lot of those don't have happy endings. A lot of them are very gruesome and very like kind of a tale of caution almost, you know. So I would have been fine with that ending, but I could see a lot of people getting pretty upset about that. But I think it wrapped up very nicely. Some of the stuff with the alien-looking things, it was a little wonky. I was like, it was okay. But
one of the Letterboxd reviews I scrolled past, like as I was watching this movie, said like, you can never guess where this goes. Mm-hmm. And then my jaw actually dropped when I was like, wait, we're in the far-flung future? Like when it was 2,000 years later, I was okay, I have no idea.
Well, that's like what I was saying in the beginning, where it was like subverted my expectations. I thought this was going to be a completely different type of film. I thought it was going to lean into like a horror kind of thing.
It's going to be Mithrigan.
Yeah, literally. But I was pleasantly surprised, and I think we could probably ask our final question.
Can I air out? I'm sorry, but can I air out one theory?
Go for it.
That actually made me make peace with the ending. And this is, I believe, from like a Reddit comment that I just read while I was looking up the ending because I was just curious because I knew it was this combination of Spielberg and Kubrick, and I was blaming Spielberg for this ending. That this is like a role reversal of what we saw at the beginning of the movie. The mom is bringing in this, it's a fake. She's replacing her son with what is, a hollow representation of a human. Yeah. If you read it that way. And then as we get David's final day with mom, who is this like, some through the science future magic, some representation of this woman for one day. That seems like maybe a little bit of a hall representation. They don't have any of the conflict that they had.
Well, and then also you have to think about what Gigolo Joe said, where he was like, she doesn't love you, she loves what you do for her. Yeah. And then at the end, you see him make coffee for her again. Mm-hmm. And it's like just the way that you like, Yeah. And so I was like, is she... I don't know. It just kind of like, that's why I was saying my kind of gripe with it in the beginning was like, I didn't feel that connection between them.
But also, is it sad, just as sad, if that role fulfills him just as much? Right. It's kind of a bittersweet thing.
Where he's kind of just accepting what he is, and what he can do for her, and that brings him happiness, I think you're right. I think it kind of can go both ways, and it still works a little bit. Yeah.
So that explanation gave me a little peace about it, because I was a little annoyed. We're like, once we do the sit down where it's like, David, we're only back for one day, and I'm like, oh, why?
I was like, you guys are flying in like UFOs and stuff, and you can't just like bring this woman back.
This seems like a really sweaty dramatic setup dreamed up by a screenwriter.
He was like, can you bring my mommy back? They're like, nah, it'll be a little too much work for us. But
although, a great just little A-B connection was Teddy snatching the little lock of hair from the moment where she wakes up terrified at the sight of David with scissors right next to her face. Yeah. And that comes back 2 hours later, importantly.
Full circle.
Yes, but let's ask our final question. Is this a perfect movie?
You lost a baby brother. Perfect in every way.
I had a baby brother. I had a little baby brother. And he was perfect. Perfect in every way.
Easy yes.
Hell yeah.
I was shocked. And if you haven't seen AI and you've made it this far, highly recommend. It's so good.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful film. Mm-hmm. And it looks great. It looks really good. For 2001, it looks really good.
No, almost everything, there are very few exceptions, but almost everything from that era of especially like highly effects-driven movies just looks like crap now.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of those highly effects-driven movies look like crap today.
Yeah. I was like, The Matrix, I watched that recently. I was like, does not look good.
Yeah.
No, this film is brilliant, and I kind of loved it, and I think I'm going to buy it, probably on Blu-ray. Great sci-fi movie. Why have I never watched this? That's like, I don't know. I think it's definitely one that's under the radar as far as like people probably haven't been exposed to this, or they watched it as a child and completely forgot about it.
And I think part of it is the reception at the time. It was not glowingly received. In fact, there's this British, he works for the BBC film critic that I watched some of his videos, and he had this video where he like did like I forget whether it was like a 10-year or 20-year retrospective where he was like, I was wrong about AI. It's a masterpiece, and he like apologized specifically to Steven Spielberg in an interview.
What were some of the negative complaints about it?
I think maybe a lot of people just had trepidation about this being like a Kubrick project that was being, brought to the foreground by Steven Spielberg, and maybe just that, I don't know, they didn't think the concept was like, I don't really know. To me, I don't have any complaints, so I can't get in those headspace, and I haven't like gone back and read a bunch.
It's also, I mean, it is kind of a long movie too, and I don't know if it can hold a lot of people's attention for that long. It was like 2 hours and 30 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Rubber stamp it. Put it on the list.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
Let me do a perfect movie list roll call real quick.
Roll call.
these are all the movies that have been inducted in our damn near 3 years, I'm thinking. Because I think we're about to be on our over 3 years. Am I making this up?
We're
Is
over
it 2?
Over 2 years. But we're like halfway to 3.
Is this our 3rd October, though? That's what I was counting.
It's our 2nd October. No,
it's our
it's
third.
our 3rd. Holy shit.
We did all the classics the first one. We did like Scream and Halloween and all those. And then
we did some of the newer stuff last year. Yeah. Wow. Crazy. Time flies. Almost at our 100th episode, too.
Is that when we should induct all the movies from our purgatory list?
We should. Why not? Got to do something special.
All right, so our movies on the perfect movie list are Mad Max, Fury Road, Do the Right Thing, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, The Lighthouse, Django Unchained, Napoleon Dynamite, all of the Lord of the Rings movies. Well, the original trilogy. We don't speak about the Hobbit movies.
No.
Scream, Halloween, Judas and the Black Messiah, School of Rock, Scott Pilgrim, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, The Grand Budapest Hotel, The Dark Knight, Raising Arizona, Nacho Libre, Dead Poets Society. We got 9 more to go. Mad God, Alien, Goodfellas, Silence, The Big Lebowski, Fargo, No Country for Old Men, Jurassic Park, and AI.
That's a good list.
I can stand by all of those movies.
I agree. Yeah, that's a good list. Wow. Yeah, it kind of blew my mind that we've been going for this long. Thanks for tuning in. Next week we'll be doing Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Look forward to that. Time. What the fuck is that?
Maybe I didn't do a good job. Those are maybe the 5 most famous notes in cinema history. Those are the
alien jam session. Yeah.
I love when they go to India or like wherever they are, Pakistan, Kuwait.
Oh yeah, and they're all chanting it.
Okay.
And then the aliens are like, yeah, I get what y'all are saying.
Bye.